I would like to finish this book, which shows all the world champion with an introduction, a little story about them, with the chapter on Magnus Carlsen, because there is a beautiful game against Anand that we should see. So this game was played in 2012, so quite before Carlsen was world champion. Carlsen is white, Anand is black. Notice that Anand was world champion when they played this game, while Carlsen was the number one in the rating list. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5. Like most of the top players of today, Carlsen varies his strategy against the Sicilian defense. Sometimes he goes for the main line with 3d4, and sometimes he goes for a side line. Bishop d7, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, c4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, d4, c takes d4, and knight takes d4. This variation is all about pawn structure. White has a space advantage, but as one pair of bishops has already been traded, and black has been given the arguably useful developing move d8, d7 for free. Black has little difficulty in finding good squares for his pieces. What matters to Carlsen is that there is enough play left. Bishop g7, f3, queen c7. This was a new move which shows that Anand came to the game well prepared. He intends to use his queen for active play along the e5, d8 diagonal. Instead of queen c7, the knight c6 would have been standard, okay? So how did Carlsen play? He played b3. Queen a5, bishop b2, knight c6, castle, castle, knight c e2, rook f d8, bishop c3, queen b6, and king h1. As we can see, often there is this kind of move, king h1, in the Sicilian, but also in other openings when, unfortunately, the diagonal is weak for white. And let's see what he says. White's first and foremost concern is to consolidate his pawn structure, while black is on the lookout for ways to effectively use his well-placed pieces. Okay, so let's see. Wow, so this is interesting. Black plays d5. This move is based on a sacrifice that isn't a sacrifice. E takes d5, knight takes d5, c takes d5, rook takes d5, and white knight on d4 is pinned and cannot be saved. So let's see it again, okay? Let's see it in real life. So let's see what happens. E takes d5, knight takes d5, c takes d5, and rook takes d5. And white knight is pinned. Oops. Is pinned, right? Because behind there is the queen and can't be saved. That's interesting. Why? Because 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are only 1, 2, 3. let's also remember that it's very easy to play this. So, yep, okay, that's very interesting. So I will pause the video and return back to the position. Well, this d5 is a nice move, in fact. So knight takes c6, b takes c6, and queen e1. Okay, now there is a threat, right? Bishop a5 skewering this. So the threat of bishop a5 gives white the time to neutralize black initiative. But does he still have attacking chances? Carlsen has spotted one. The advance e4, e5, e6. Black plays rook d c8, which is a dubious move. This would have been more natural as a move, okay? So let's see what happens. e5, knight e8, oops, e6. It is only 4 moves ago that black seemed to be firmly in control, but this pawn sacrifice makes it abundantly clear that the real struggle is only starting. To begin with, black faces a difficult long-term decision. F takes e6, f6 or f5. All look sound, but they all lead to totally different types of position. Which one to choose? Anand decides to eliminate white's far advanced pawn. F takes e6. Knight f4, attacking. This is how it often goes in Carlsen games. On move 13, the knight seemed to be condemned to a passive role. Now, all of a sudden, it is leading the charge. Bishop takes e3. Queen takes e3. d4. Queen d2. c5. Rook a e1. And knight g7. It looks as if black has consolidated his position, so long as he can defend his pawn on e6. Seems safe. Well, let's see what Carlsen does. g4. A move that simply radiates self-confidence. It is obvious that white has a possible pawn storm. h2, h4, h4, h5 in mind, and it is also clear that he is preventing knight g7, f5. But there is even more to it than that. Wow. Rook c6, knight h3. A big surprise. The position seems to be screaming for the much more conventional knight d3, until you realize that knight h3 introduces the simple threat of queen h6 followed by knight g5. Obviously this is the falling down. A mate is unavoidable. The knight on g7, so well placed for defending e6, is powerless against this straightforward mating attack, because it no longer has access to f5. Let's see what it does. Knight e8, queen h6, knight f6, knight g5, d3, and this is a dubious move, d3. Black plays his only trump card. This is understandable, but he soon gets over-trumped by yet another unconventional yet very efficient attacking maneuver. Rook e5. The idea behind this move is not to routinely double the rooks on the e-file in order to increase the pressure on e6. That is precisely what black's last move has made unattractive. But to enable the rook to join in the attack against the black king. The threat is knight takes h7, knight takes h7, queen takes g6, king h8, and rook h5. So practically with this knight he eliminates the pawns, after which the rook helps to kill the rest. So very, very interesting idea. As we can see, the book is good because it doesn't overwhelm us with variations after variation that surely these two players have calculated because they are the top of the top, but it gives us the enough amount of prose and variations, very similar to Grandmaster Solti's books, and that's why I like it, right? So what does black play? Black plays king h8, right? And let's see what happens. Rook d1, and now the pawn d3 is undefensible. It says queen e6. It's a little too late for a counter-attack, and let's see what played. White played a4, and black resigned, perhaps surprisingly so, since his previous move seemed to indicate that he was preparing for the defensive maneuver queen a6, c8, f8. So let's see what happens, however, okay? However, the endgame after queen c8, rook takes d3, queen f8, queen takes f8, rook takes f8, knight takes e6, rook f c8, and g5 is so utterly hopeless that resignation is indeed understandable and perhaps even preferable. Okay, so as you can see, again, top players that they know when an endgame is lost. Obviously many of us would continue to play, partly because yes, maybe it's lost, but white can make mistakes, because we generally don't play against Magnus Carlsen. In any case, this, in my opinion, is a beautiful book which introduces you to the different world champion with this kind of mini biographies and some other beautiful games. It's worth to have it in your own chess library. I hope you will enjoy it. The graphic of the cover, in my opinion, is wonderful, because as you can see, they have made it all the 4 pages, so it's really a beautiful cover. Sorry for the lights. I hope you will enjoy the book.